Welcome to our channel where we'll talk about all things Turo and our experiences with being hosts going now on 3 years. Today we're going to do a little crash course on things that you need to do and things you should know as a Turo host at the time of checking out your vehicle. So there's 3 key areas to this that are really important to keep in mind. You need to make sure that you're tracking your mileage, your gas, and also taking into account any damages. So those are the 3 things that we're going to talk a little bit about in a more of a crash course, and then we'll create a separate video talking a little bit more in depth about some of these different items, from the damages, submitting those damage claims to get the reimbursement, what is the process, insurances, and so on. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So we've now been doing Turo for 3 years. It's my husband and I, Joshua. We've definitely learned a lot, and there's a lot of things that we've come to realize that now going on our 3rd year that we really wish someone would have talked a little bit more about in depth, right? A lot of times you read these manuals, these instructions, some of these YouTubers where they'll talk about, the checkout process is super seamless, it's super easy, yeah. But no one really touches really more into what that is, what that means, and so on. So I thought it was really important for us to talk through that a bit and share some of the experiences that Joshua and I have had. So we're gonna walk through the checkout experience and just share a little bit of insight on those different areas and things to consider. So let's go ahead and get started by talking about the standard across the board things you need to do at the time of checkout. So when checking out your vehicle with Turo, you need to make sure that you record the mileage and the gas, where it's currently at, the gauge overall. Now, this is standard with Turo, and it's in their Turo app at the time of checkout. It does ask you to complete the checkout and record the mileage, as well as gauge where the gas is at. For us, this is really important because we do charge based off of mileage on our trips. So you can get X amount of miles for X amount of days of your trip. Right? I know some hosts don't charge mileage, so it may not be as relevant for you, but in our case, it does matter. Now, it's really important that once you actually are in the vehicle, you turn it on, you take a picture of this, and then record that in your Turo app. Very, very important. I know that Turo does ask you at the time of checkout to take interior and exterior pictures. And here's my thoughts on this, just based off of my experience today. Now, I do take some pictures of the interior and the exterior at the time of checkout, but because of the circumstances and depending on where you're picking up the car, it could be dark, it could be late at night, it could be in a parking garage. Like in our case, most of the airports that we go to, like the Tampa airport, for example, here in Florida, it does have a covered parking garage. So you're not gonna get the best quality of pictures if someone hit, scratched, dented, cracked a windshield, whatever it may be. You're really not going to be able to see that and get the best quality pictures. Also, another thing to keep in mind is some of these airports are really strict and enforced real strong rules as far as what you can and can't do with your vehicles when dropping or picking them up. Tampa is one of those where you cannot clean your cars, you shouldn't be taking pictures or doing anything that's part of the actual process. Other than like the mileage itself and taking a picture of the location for like pickup or drop off or whatever that may be. But they're very strict with that. So it's really important to understand, depending where you're picking up or checking out, what are the guidelines, what are those rules? So that's one reason we really avoid taking too many pictures at that point. But what we will do is we will drive to the nearest gas station around, or if it's like a parking lot, whatever it may be. It really just depends your circumstance. And then if there's any extras or anything like that, damages, we'll take a look at that, right? So that's one of the reasons why we do stop there. Now, to talk a little about, just take a little bit of a step back first, I'm gonna talk about gas. So if in the event, when you're doing your checkout, you find that they did leave it below the full gauge, and they did not select the prepaid fuel, you wanna make sure that you do fill the tank up right in that moment, get a receipt, and take a picture of that, right? It's really important, and it's something that you can get reimbursed for if you have it set up accordingly and gave them the option to do a prepaid fuel. It's something that we do. Now, it's super important to understand that when you when you do this, you have up to 24 hours from the time of checkout to check the vehicle out and verify that they did leave it with a filled tank, or if it was prepaid fuel, whatever that may be. In our case, unless they select prepaid fuel, they need to leave it at full. So we will go to a gas station, we'll go to the closest gas station because we don't want to overcharge them for gas usage or anything like that. Again, it's just more of a morality and integrity thing for our company. We really hold ourselves to high standards, and we don't want any of our guests feeling like after the fact they were ripped off, even if it's by a quarter, 50 cents, $1. It doesn't matter to us. It's very, very important. So we will go ahead and take a picture of the gas, the receipt of the gas. And then from there, we have up to 24 hours to submit that as a reimbursement claim within the Turo app. You do have to upload the picture to show proof, and then from there they will bill them for that at that point. Okay, so just something really, really important to keep in mind. I just feel like I said 24 hours. It's 72 hours. So you have up until 24 hours to fill the tank and take a picture of the actual receipt from when you filled the tank. And then you have up to 72 hours to actually file that claim and get reimbursed directly within the Turo app. Now, it's really, really important, and this is something that may sound really silly, but nowadays in the days and age of technology, it is very important. We take the picture in that moment because we're moving around a lot, things happen, receipts get lost, and you need to make sure that you took a proper picture at the time, because these systems and tools nowadays can even pull up metadata and they can see the location and time where these things were actually taken. And you don't want to get caught doing anything suspicious or fishy, because it can put you at risk of your account being suspended with Turo. It can be penalized or it can be suspended. So super important to make sure that you keep that top of mind. The next thing that we're going to talk about is mileage. Now, another really important part of checkout is taking into account the mileage. Again, we do charge mileage per day of the trip. So for each day, you get X amount of mileage that's included within your time frame, your rental time frame overall. So it's really, really important that if they did go over, you took a picture at the time of checkout at the exact location when you went to pick up the vehicle. And if you need to take that into account and file that as another form of reimbursement and invoice them, you can do so because you already took the picture. Turo already records the miles that were used. So if they had up to 500 miles, let's say as the example, and they went over by let's say 25, so it was 525, it will show you that they used 525 miles, and then from there you can start that reimbursement process with them. Now, there's a couple of things to take into consideration here, and it's really important to understand, and I don't see many people talking about this, and it's the actual breakdown of the cost of the mileage in itself. Right? So, and you also need to take into consideration if you had any discounts or anything like that going on at that point, those discounts are also taken into consideration to the fee that will be applied. So I'm just going to kind of read off a little bit about that here. So the way that it works is Turo calculates the cost per mile when the trip is booked by dividing your daily price by your daily distance, right? So again, just kind of going into some examples there. I have here like a 3-day trip with a vehicle, let's say it's priced at $100 per day. And then for each day, it's 200 miles that's included within there. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide the total trip price, 300, by the total daily distance, which then means you have 600 miles, right? Now, from there, you have the 600 miles to get an additional distance fee of 50 cents per mile. So just to keep in mind, something really important to know, so that when you're doing the breakdown and when you are submitting that claim, or that reimbursement fee, you can go ahead and do that. Okay. Now the last, but certainly not least, that we will make, talk a little bit more in another video separately from this, is damages. Now this, I laugh because, we've gone through so many different things. We've seen so many different things, and there's not a single thing that today really really just hasn't surprised us at this point. Now, before I dive into that, I do just want to put a full disclaimer out there. I'm not blind or ignorant to the understanding or the actual fact that when you become a Turo host, you need to be aware of the risks that you're taking and the damage that can happen to your car, right? I'm not saying that in this sense and saying, oh, I didn't know. It's more of the unique scenarios and how to manage that, like how to best action it in itself, right? I've had everything from cars that have been totaled in car accidents on trips. I've had cars that have been little fender benders. I've had cars that have had minor dents, scratches, dings, cracked windshields, and so on. But and they're all very unique scenarios. Again, they become very generic after some time. We've been doing it for 3 years and they're pretty normal to us already. Not easier, never gets easier, but they are pretty normal to us. So I did want to talk a little bit about that. So what we'll do at that point is we will stop at a gas station. Like I said, we'll take a look at the vehicle from the inside and out. We'll make sure that there aren't any dents or scratches, but again, you need to make sure that you take the proper pictures at the time of check-in so that if you do need to file these types of claims and show proof of the damage, you can do so because you can show your before and your after, whether it's from exterior of scratches or dents, damage to your rims, headlights, things like that. It's very important to check those things out at that point in time and then properly take pictures, extra additional pictures of the vehicle, right? Sometimes we're moving so fast, we don't realize there's additional damages or things that have happened. And it can happen. These things tend to get overlooked and it's really important that you document those things. Another couple of things that we look for at the time of checkout, and I giggle about these too because I just always laugh. It's just like, it just never gets old. Is sunroof. If you have a sunroof or a moonroof, check the cloth. Actually open it up. Make sure it's functioning and working correctly. Automatic windows. Make sure you're rolling those up and down. Make sure that there's no damage to the seats, to the actual interior, that your carpets are still there. Things like that we've actually found and we've experienced all of those in the above. We've had people who've broken sunroofs, moonroofs, the cloth to those things, windows, cracks in windshields, and so on, and they don't report it, and then they just kind of play it off at the end and just say, I didn't do that. Now, it's also a mistake from our part in our experience of learning where we've moved so fast, we didn't realize it happened in the moment, and we overlooked it. And the next thing you know, we realize it, it's too late, it's already past the window to file a claim, and then we can't go forward from there. So this is why it's so important to document those things at the time of. Now, this is a really important part. Document it, take pictures, and make sure if you have a ruler or you can size it with a quarter, a hand, whatever that may be, go ahead and do it at that point because with damages, you have to report them within 24 hours from the time of checkout, okay? I'll repeat that, 24 hours from the time of checkout. It's not like a reimbursement where we're talking about the mileage or the gas, where you have 24 hours to document it, right? Take a picture of it, and then you have 72 hours to actually go through with submitting the request for reimbursement. Damages is 24 hours to document it and file the reimbursement claim, right? You have to file that claim, start that process. Now, that is a whole nother conversation, and we will definitely make another video about that, talking about the protection plans. What does that look like when you do encounter these types of scenarios? How do you file the claim? Who's responsible? Is it the Turo coverage that's provided to you depending on what plan you're on? Is it the customer, the guest, the customer? And you know, what happens if they decline the Turo insurance? Do they use their regular insurance? How does that process work? We have literally gone through it all. So we're definitely gonna make another recording walking through that. This is more of a quick crash course of things you should know and really make sure you do at the time of checking out that no one really talks about. So that wraps it up for us, guys. I hope this was helpful. I'd love to hear feedback or thoughts on things that maybe we are not considering and we really should consider, things that, you know, maybe you weren't aware of, or if you have any other questions or just want some general assistance, we're more than happy to help. Really excited about this. So yeah, thanks for your time and catch you next time.